and welcome to AI've Got Questions. I'm Stacey Epstein, your host. I'm a former CEO and four-time CMO, and I am in awe at how much AI is transforming our profession. I created this podcast to help expose some of the incredible new technologies and the amazing new ways we're doing work with AI in marketing and in go-to-market in general. I hope you enjoy the show. Here's the next episode. Today on the podcast, we have a company that I'm going to say is probably my most requested guest. So Yash Tekriwal, who is the head of education at Clay, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm stoked to chat.
Yeah, it's awesome. Let's start with getting to know you. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your life and how did you get to where you are and how'd you get to Clay?
Yeah, actually, I haven't really thought about this in a while. Let's see, a little bit about me. I'm an incredibly eclectic person, professionally and personally. I think if you, like, for example, I've had friends tell me that they look at my LinkedIn and they're like, what do you actually do? And the answer is still mysterious to many of them, right? I've been many things over the course of my career. I started as an education tech founder. Then I was a high school teacher. Then I was a professional coach slash entrepreneurship coach. Then I did data science for a bit. Then I was in product. Then I was in venture capital. Then I ended back in startups, doing my own thing, failed more miserably that time around. And the ultimate story of how I found my way to Clay, which I think is maybe the lesson that I take away from my career journey so far, is that I've always been in the startup space and ecosystem because I stumbled upon it while I was in college and just ended up really loving the art of creating, building small things, problem solving. And so the way that I ended up at Clay is that I had heard of Clay a couple of years prior to it ever being a breakout company because I'm just in the no code, low code automation space.
Yeah.
Friend of mine who I met through one of the education programs that I ran way back when was leaving his job and was exploring potentially working at Clay. And I gave him my very honest pro con of what I liked about the tool, what I didn't like about the tool at the time. This was almost 4 years ago. And then he ended up consulting for a bit, ended up working there full time, ended up becoming one of our co-founders, which is Varun.
Okay.
And he was constantly pinging me while he was joining Clay for advice on what I thought about the product, where they were steering the direction. I think very few people know this, but Clay has actually been around for almost 8 years now.
Oh,
And
wow.
for the first 5 to 6 years where nobody knew about it, it was a horizontal automation tool in a spreadsheet format. And so it did a little bit of everything, but not anything in particular very well. And what Varun really steered and how I got involved with it around 4 years ago is what are the real pains, who are the initial audiences that really feel the usage and the benefit of this tool. And then slowly, he iterated towards go to market, sales. I got more and more enchanted with the product as it started to do the things I wanted it to do better. And then over enough time, my only regret now is not saying yes to Varun sooner. He had asked me if I would join for a year and a half. And then finally, my last company that I was at ended up winding down and I was looking for what I wanted to do next. And I liked Varun. I liked what the company was starting to do because I'd seen them progress for a year. And so I figured, why not? And it's been a crazy journey since.
Fascinating. It sounds like your life and Clay's life were sort of parallel. You both were doing a lot of different things and learning a lot of different things. And now you and Clay have both narrowed into a very specific thing that is solving a big problem. And maybe you're finally on to the thing that you love to do the most.
Yeah, I've actually never thought about it that way, but I think that's pretty accurate. That's a great comparison to draw.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
your life and Clay's life intersected at a great time. Well, congratulations. I mean, I've done a lot of things in my career, but kind of all in the B2B SaaS space. And my husband's a high school teacher, so
There you go. What's up,
I don't
Jess?
know. I think, especially right now when there's lots of kids coming out of college and they all want to know, what should I do and where should I go? And I'm always like, it doesn't really matter what you do long term. It just matters what you do next. Every little thing you do, you learn and bring it to the next thing. So I love hearing someone that has done lots of different things. You bring lots of different perspective
I agree.
to your job.
I think the world is actually becoming more and more kind to what I would call expert generalists, even though
Hmm.
advice for career for kids for the last 20 years has been specialize, find something you're incredible at, and then be world class at it. But that's a whole separate rabbit hole we can go into
Yeah.
if you want to.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe someday I'll start a podcast about life journeys. But today, let's focus on Clay's life journey. I believe that focusing on this whole GTM life cycle is a great place for Clay to focus. Such a broad and interesting solution. Tell us first maybe about the problem that Clay is solving, and then we can get into what does it actually do.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because the answer has changed over the last 3 to 4 years, probably even 5 to 6, but I've been more privy to it over the last 4. I think the impractical answer to your question would be it solves lots of problems. The more simple, practical answer is that we also solve problems in an order that is really painful, important, and felt by a lot of people. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the most important and also intimidating things about Clay is that it's an incredibly flexible tool and you can do tons of things with it. Just to rattle off the use cases, people do automated outbound, they do inbound, they do CRM enrichment, you can do account-based marketing, you can do TAM sourcing, you can do CRM. I think I already said enrichment. So let's just move on from all the use cases. The more important thing is actually, even if you couldn't find a tool that perfectly does all of that for you, order matters. You can have everything, but not all at once is often what I say. And I think in the world of AI, Clay or not, what most people need to do is crawl, walk, run. The crawl part is almost nobody I have met has an actually perfect data infrastructure.
Yeah,
You
for
just need to
sure.
have clean, accurate, reliable, consistent data. Most people have been doing that through human for the last 20 years. And
Yep.
humans are fallible. We don't do everything accurately. We also weren't really made to do data ingestion work. I think it's an unfortunate happenstance of the internet era that a lot of people have ended up in data entry jobs. But if you find me anyone that loves their data entry job, I would love to speak to them. I don't think anyone gets up in the morning raving to sit down and copy paste from one tab into another. So now we live in a world where you can do all of that data gathering, cleaning, and enrichment pretty much entirely automatically. And that's where Clay really starts. And I think is often the core first use case is we're an ecosystem of 150 plus rapidly growing different data providers. The historical precedent has been you as a company just go figure out which data providers you need. That's laborious, it's annoying, it's expensive. And then you have to stitch together all of those different data providers to figure out what the best data picture is for your ICP and your industry. We abstract away a lot of that for you. You no longer have to go pay each of them individually. You don't have to go do your research on all of them individually. We've done it for you. And
Mm-hmm.
now you just set it up in Clay. We have agreements with all of them, and we never lose a data test because of it, right? 150 heads are better than 6 to 8 is how I
Yeah.
often think about it.
I think that like as a CMO, I'm not walking around going, "Oh, data is my biggest problem. Data is my biggest problem," because I have a lot of other things at the forefront of my mind. But if I dug through and really had to think about it and really had to rank it, the opportunity of having clean data could just change everything, both for my
Yeah.
team and for the sales team and for the customer success team and for the product team. Data is definitely everything. And if you start there, you're set up to do so many other powerful things.
Well, that's, I think, the difficult thing is that if you're a sales or a marketing leader, I can tell you, having spoken to hundreds, maybe thousands now, the first thing you're thinking about is probably like, my biggest problem is outbound because my biggest problem is pipeline generation, because my biggest
Right.
problem is generating revenue. And
Yep.
that's all true. But the symptoms, if you keep asking yourself where the problems originate, almost always trace back to accurate data as the foundation and then move downstream into pipeline, revenue, tech touches, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think it's even more compelling now that we have all these AI solutions in the market because, okay, I'm going to slap on this little AI agent that can do this cool thing for me on top of a whole bunch of convoluted, dirty data, not gonna help. And I think the temptation to just jump to that is there, and it's why I do this podcast. I want to help educate people on the world is changing so fast. Maybe you should start by figuring out how to have great data, and then you're just set up to do zillions of different interesting things.
Yeah, I think the one other thing I'll add, just because it's top of mind, is that I think people don't really realize how high quality the AI we have even today can be. Because a
Hmm.
lot of people's first experience with AI is not a great one. It's not AGI, it's not the most intelligent thing that you've ever used. And so I think there's a very strong temptation, for a lot of reasons we could get into, to use AI a couple of times, look at the results and say, that's not really perfect, so it's not ready for my use case yet. But oftentimes, two things are very true. I see this even internally, by the way, with people at Clay, where you would think we were on the cutting edge of AI all the time, right? There's this hesitation to like, well, AI is not really good at that. I've tried it before. But the two things that I wanted to mention are number one, oftentimes the quality of the AI response is not actually the AI itself. It's either how you're using the AI or the data infrastructure you have for it. So you actually could be getting better results. It's just a little bit more work than actually let me type a prompt into ChatGPT or Claude. And number two, this is the one that's most personally frustrating for me, but I get it. The quality is changing every few weeks. So like you need to build a habit of curiosity and openness, I think, to be ahead of the curve here, because I'm not going to toot my own here. I'm not going to toot my own horn here. In some ways, this is a weakness. But I love the new tools coming out. So I'm always trying the new updates and what's happening and seeing where it's going. And then there's this pattern I've noticed where I get really excited when a tool finally gets to the quality level that I know I can use it in my everyday work. And then I go shouting it from the rooftops to everyone internally. And it's actually much harder to get other people to adopt it, because if they've seen the earlier version of the tool, like a great example of this that I'll talk about is Slack AI. We tried Slack AI around a year ago. It was bad. It just did not actually return the results I wanted it to. I was better off running a manual search myself. And so the quality wasn't there. And then the Salesforce team told me 2 months ago now, they were like, it's really rapidly improved. I promise you it's so much better. Just give it a shot. I'm the right person to ask for them. I'm like, let's do it. Give me a month. Let's try it. I will rigorously test it. And then when they gave it to me, I will tell them, and I've told them this directly, miles better. I now use Slack AI to find everything I need to in Slack, and it's incredibly good. It was really hard, and it's still really hard to get the rest of the team to adopt it because they all think it's bad.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, we could do another whole podcast on this topic. I do think that in the olden days, companies were very disciplined about not launching products until they were really ready for prime time. And people expected a few bugs in the first release and they would get fixed. But now we're just in this new world where there's so much new innovation coming out, new companies, new tech, new capabilities, that it's almost overwhelming for operators. You can only spend so much time experimenting and trying. I mean, the other most often requested guest is not the right word, but topic is, where do I start? And I think CMOs and go-to-market leaders and workers are saying, I know I need to use AI. Everybody's talking about it. My boss is mandating it. I use ChatGPT, but that only does so much for me. How do I really embrace this whole new AI thing? And they do not have time to sit in front of their computer for half their days and experiment with everything they hear about. So, like, what to do? Tell us. If you're advising a head of marketing or a marketing manager and they're like, I know I need to use it, I haven't started using it yet, where should I start? I mean, obviously Clay is a very comprehensive solution. So let's just say I decide I'm gonna use Clay. Where should I start? How do I get going?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll give you a Clay answer and I'll give you a non-Clay answer as well.
Okay.
So I think the Clay answer is a hint to what we were talking about earlier.
Mhm.
You always want to start with the data foundation. I would say ballpark of the 100% of people that I've talked to, 98% realize that their data quality is not where it needs to be at. Fewer realize that that is a critical element to implementing AI successfully. But if you can get yourself there faster, accelerates the conversation. The other important thing I will say with Clay is that data enrichment is the first step. It should not be the last step if you want to maximize your value from AI. So I think I've also seen a lot of marketing and sales leaders just be so wowed by the fact that you can get all of your data automatically and accurately and cleanly that they stop there, because that's already a step change from what they've been doing for the last 20 years. But you can do so much more. So more concretely, I'll give 2 or 3 examples in the Clay world. Yes. I think if you start with data enrichment, no matter who you are, that's the best first step. The tougher part becomes, how do I then want to leverage that into the highest value part of my next workflow, regardless of the company or division I'm at? And broadly speaking, I can tell you I've seen 3 patterns. I think number 1 is pipeline generation, top of funnel. That branches into outbound and inbound are the most common starting points, because those are probably the highest volumes of activity that you get in your sales pipeline and funnel. The one hidden one that is related to inbound that I'll mention is if you have a PLG process, PLG product signups are basically higher intent than an inbound form. Someone wants to use your product, you should be enriching that data. So Start with the lowest hanging fruit. It's all the people you're already reaching out to, all the people who are already engaging with you. Do a better job of making sure you are following up with the person from Figma or Salesforce who signs up for your product. On day one, someone from your sales team should be reaching out to them and saying, hey, I noticed you signed up. I saw that you went through these 3 use cases. I'm guessing you maybe have these pains. Did you get your problem solved? Could I hop on a call to help you? Can I better understand your use case? That type of touch point, we used to do it manually before you could do it in Clay, generates incredible amounts of meetings booked and really high quality customers because you're already meeting them at the point of a pain they're trying to solve. You somewhat get to skip discovery because the discovery is already there for you and what they're trying to do on the tool instead of them coming blind to you with a high level problem. So that's pathway 1 is I have a data foundation.
Just to ask a question, does this mean the painful process of lead scoring goes away?
No, I think what it means with nuance is that you have to be really rigorous about your lead scoring process, but you should no longer have to do it yourself lead by lead. So like an example would be, let's say we have 1,000 PLG signups for our product. Of those 1,000, I'm going to say 50% are qualified and 50% are unqualified. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty of what the lead score would be for that, but it's probably some combination of company industry, company size, person seniority, their job title, where they live, how large their specific team is. Now you can get all that data automatically, and then we can run the formula automatically. So what should be happening is the old era is you have like an inbound SDR or BDR looking through a massive stream of signups and kind of eyeball picking which ones they should further dig into, and then eyeball picking which ones they send an email to. Now, in the Clay, really just the AI world, what you can do instead is every single sign up through your product, you automatically enrich all of the fundamentals that you would need to score that data. You have a scoring algorithm that runs on top of that, which you can do in Clay. And then from that scoring algorithm, you classify your leads by priority. Maybe you have grade A, B, C, and D. And then grade A, B, and C get different types of personalized follow-ups that maybe route to your enterprise, your sales-led, and your sales assist team. And maybe grade D gets a PLG support option, and maybe the option to book with customer success. But then those, how you configure the actual human touch points is up to you.
Yeah. And so the thing that goes away is that ugly form with lots of fields that nobody wants to fill out.
That's another benefit, right? The forms, like the other thing that I will die on a mountain screaming from the roof is that no one should have a form that is more than 2 questions long.
Yep.
You're now asking me, as per someone who's interested in the software and paying you money, to waste my time giving you information you could get automatically from just knowing my LinkedIn profile or email. Not a winning play.
100%. Yeah, as marketers, we've been grappling with that for a long time. In order to prioritize leads and segment leads to get to the right people, you need info. It's back to data. We need the data. And in the past, the only way to get to data was either make them fill out a form or add a step where you had some sort of SDR asking them all those questions that nobody wants to be asked. So I get it. And then I hope we're going to get into Claygens, right? Because I think there's a whole workflow aspect to this too. So, okay, so now I know who to call on. Now what do I do?
So I think there's a couple of things, right? Like you mentioned, like now what do you do after that? I think there is a lot of Clay processes are let's automate everything up until the first touch point, but do it in a personalized way. And what that means, by the way, is like my side note here. I think a lot of companies jump to let me fire my entire BDR team or SDR team. And like, sure, can you do that? It's a choice. Is it a choice I agree with? Personally, no. Because my strong belief, we do this at Clay, and I've seen it with our most successful companies as well. There are so many things that the best GTM orgs should be doing that they have never done because you've never had the time to do it. You should be sending more people to conferences. You should be sending people to dinners. You should be hosting more events. You should have humans do the things that humans are best at doing, which is building relationships, building connections. If you look at AI as a methodology to just automate the digital touch points that we have and pray to God that you're going to generate deals from that, it'll work for a little bit because maybe you have arbitrage on everyone else going through that for the next 6 to 12 months, but you will inevitably, I think the most human companies will win. We're using technology to automate the inhumane parts of the job so that you can focus on the human parts of the job. So anyways, that's my little rant about that. To more directly answer your question, what happens after that first touch point? I actually think you should leave most of it to the human relationship that gets built from there if we're talking about a sales conversation. The nuance that I would add is even from that first relationship touch point, let's call it a meeting booked, there are tons of other things that people have been plagued down by because it's
Yeah.
manual data aggregation and tasks. A couple of quick concrete examples. If you're a really top-notch AE, you probably do a really good job of researching your accounts, understanding their information, the news, maybe their recent social media presence, so that you walk into that call ready to impress. You want to say, hey, by the way, I already read the blog post you published last month on your data pains and lead generation problems. It sounds like you're dealing with these two pipeline issues. I bet if that's what's important to you, we can get you a solution in the next 20 minutes. If it's not what's important to you, tell me more. Let's have a conversation. But like coming with that level of preparedness, which by the way, I almost never get when I'm purchasing software. People are always like, what is Clay? What does Clay
Yeah.
do? Tell me
Only
more.
the best reps take the time to do that.
Because it's hard. It takes
It is
time,
hard.
is the main point that you're making, right? But an example of this is every single salesperson on our team, the morning of at 9 a.m., we scan through their calendar. We look at all the people at the accounts that they're talking to, and they get a Slack channel DM with a full Google Doc that's 1 to 2 pages, and it's a complete brief on who is the company, what are their pains, what do we think they might be struggling with that would be really important for us to talk about. What's the individual like? What's their career history? How long have they been there? Who else do they report? And coming in with that level of preparedness makes me much more effective at building the human step. That's the thing that I think most people really miss. I'm just going to keep hitting it home. It's all about enabling people to be more like people,
Yeah.
not to automate it away.
Yeah, I hear you. What came to my mind is, when you have like a really senior executive whose day is just booked, right? Back to back to
Yeah.
back. And they have a chief of staff, they have an admin, all the administrative stuff is taken care of for them, right? As they're walking into the meeting, they're being reminded, here's who you're meeting with, here's a few points about that person, here's the brief. And it's almost like we are now saying we want the same of our salespeople. We want every hour to be optimized for that human interaction, like a very senior executive. Like, you're so important that I don't want you to do any administrative tasks. I want you to be briefed. I want you to spend your time on calls. So 95% of your day should be talking to prospects, and the other 5% maybe reading the prep that you're given. And other than that, like, your time is too valuable. So it's like we're treating our BDRs and our salespeople like top senior executives. All the admin is done for them. It just came to my mind as you were talking about it.
No, I totally agree. You're absolutely right. Right. The only reason I think that we haven't hired an EA for every single top performer on the sales team is just budget. You can't justify the cost and maybe the time and the ROI. Like, it takes a lot of investment to see
Yeah.
whether or not that would pay off. But today we can do it in like a couple of days. And one person can be the executive assistant managing the systems for a sales team of 50 or 100 even.
Yeah. No CEO is going to just dive into their day without doing a little bit of like, okay, who am I meeting with? What are my goals for this meeting? What background? That happens for very important top people. But now with Clay and with AI, your team can spend all of their time selling, but they can have all that really important prep and research that prepares them to be amazing when they show up to the meeting, like they're the CEO.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say on this thread is that what you're reminding me of is, I think, for a long time, if we've been around, if you've been in the space for a while, like, you've probably heard the phrase of you have to choose between quantity and quality at certain levels
Hmm.
of the sales game. And I
Yeah.
think for the first time in history, you are able to choose both quantity and quality because you have other tools doing the work for you that otherwise would have plagued you down on the quantity side.
Yeah, amazing. Well, and I think back to your point about how important humans are in the selling process, we're really optimizing for human interaction versus administrative and research oriented tasks.
Yeah, and I think one more thing I'll say on that, right, is that, like, I was just talking to someone about this an hour ago, actually, and I was saying, in a world like you were just saying, actually, right? So many tools are coming out every day. More and more competitors exist every day, and honestly, sometimes the hardest part is figuring out what's the difference between the three different top tools besides price. And oftentimes the answer to that is, who am I more excited to work with? Like, which one of these tools do I have a better relationship with the people coming on board? Do I trust more to understand myself, my business, and my process better? And we actually get this feedback sometimes at Clay where it's like, we don't have the best tech always for every use case. Hopefully we'll get there over the next 5 years. But like one of my deals that I won't mention by name in case they would be upset by it when I was doing sales work, where I remember them telling me, look, your product does not do the inbound automation piece as well as this other tool does. But part of the reason we're going to sign here is because one, you've put in a lot of work to help us figure it out. So I'm confident that it'll get there eventually. I believe you when you say it's on the roadmap and it will be done instead of the like, it'll happen and then the promise is never fulfilled. And two, this is where the horizontality wins for us, is that if we can do that and all these other things in one platform, people crave simplicity, especially in an era of complexity. Everyone would rather buy one thing to do 8 really well
Yeah,
than
of course.
7 things to do 7 really well.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on time. Are there other aspects of Clay that we haven't gotten to yet?
I mean, there's so many. We could probably spend hours talking about it,
Yep.
but I think we've covered the most important ones. Maybe the last teaser I'll leave is we've talked about data enrichment being the foundation of everything that's high quality for you. Then we've talked about automating the first touches for people, not so that they don't have to be human, but so that they can be more human. And then the second piece we've talked about is post first touch. How do you automate what I would call like intelligence for the entire team so that everyone can perform at the level of your best player on every call? And then the only remaining element is the training of people to be able to perform at that level, not the tools that you've given them. And then the teaser that I want to end with is that we're talking about this primarily in sales. And I think a lot of the conversation around Clay has been sales oriented because it's where we started. But you actually hinted at it, I think 15 to 20 minutes ago, where it's like, this actually is true pretty much across the organization.
Yeah.
Marketers, personalized landing pages is one of my favorite use cases in Clay, right? If you could have a marketing person create individualized landing pages with individual for every top named account when they land on your website, you would do it.
Yes.
You just have it because the cost and the timing doesn't make sense, but now you can.
Love it.
Customer success, if you could give them an entire digest of every single call that they've had, information on product usage, whether or not the customer is pacing for healthy renewal or expansion ahead of time, and if they're not, what problems they're dealing with, you would do it. And the answer is you can, but you just have to put the tools and the systems in place now to be able to do it, and you have to dream big.
And how hard is it? So I guess maybe this is a target market for you kind of question. How big of a team do I need in order to implement Clay and benefit from all these use cases?
Yeah, so this you're starting to touch on something that could also be an entirely separate podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just chat about things in the future.
We'll have you
What you're
back in
touching
6
on.
months.
Let's do it. Yeah. You're sort of hinting at, I think, the GTM engineering phenomena, which is that I think one of the best things to Clay is that you can, and I really mean this, probably get a lot of the systems that we talked about on this call up and running with 1 to 2 people.
Wow.
I think the difficult thing is finding those 1 to 2 people for most people.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking a lot more about this. Quick summary, since we're at time already, is that you can't hire people with 6 years of GTM engineering experience. It's crazy to me that I've even seen that in job postings. The job posting has not existed for more than like 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? Think about the component skills that you want. You want someone who has computational thinking, not necessarily experience in years of Java and Python, someone who can solve problems, dynamically understand business context, but then translate to systems. And the patterns that I'll give people as hints here are people who have spent the last 3 to 5 years hacking around in like a Zapier or a Make or like Python code for scraping purposes in Selenium, likely have the component skill sets you're looking for to become a X leverage automation individual using tools like Clay, Zapier, et cetera, in the AI era.
Got it. Okay. Well, that is incredibly helpful. I think a job description just written right there. So, well, I feel like we could have talked for hours. We went a little longer than we normally go on this podcast, but I think Clay certainly justifies it. And I learned a lot, and I'm excited to continue to watch Clay, and let's absolutely stay in touch. And I would love to have you back on the show. We can dive into some of these other issues as well.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for asking some wonderful questions. I got to rethink some of my own perspectives.
Great.
And yeah, looking forward to the evolution.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, Stacey.